Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. Today we are going to understand the Vedic vision of human society in detail. Before that prayer, Kailasavasi Kavachi Katoras Tripurantakaha Vrushanko Vrushabharudho Basmadhulita Vigraha. The etymological meaning of the word Veda is knowledge of two types. One type is subject to time, space, and person, and the other is realization of self independent of all subjections. The former is called aparajnana, relative knowledge, because it is related to objects. The latter is parajnana, spiritual knowledge. Here the word Veda is used in the sense of spiritual knowledge. One day, Vaidarbi, the son of Bhrigu, asked the learned sage Pippalada, Milad, what is Brahma Vijnana? That means intuitional science. What is relation between Brahman and the world? The sage Pippalada replied, just as the spokes are attracted to the hub of a wheel, similarly, every object in this universe is Brahman-centric and thus has kept up its individual existence. The nucleus of the cosmic system is the source of all entities, from the highest created being down to the lowest insect. Rigveda. Incantations. Yajur. Invocations. Sama. Songs all are dependent on Brahman, the source of their existence. The word Praja means what is evolved. Brahman is Prajapati, lord of evolved objects, for he is controller of all. Prajapati Brahman moves about in the womb as an embryo, and when it is born, the event should actually be called the reflex birth of Brahman instead of his birth, because all created entities are merely manifestation of Brahman. For example, there is only one moon, but its reflection falling in the countless footprints of cows, Goshpada, appears as countless moons. No new moons are created. The same moon is being reflected in several receptacles. Similarly, one Brahman is manifesting in an infinite number of units in countless mental receptacles. Brahman is absolute bliss. That's why the units or microcosms are always raising with the help of their sensory and motor organs towards their inner selves, towards the attainment of happiness. So it is said that knowingly or unknowingly, the units are moving towards Brahman, filled with inspiration. Several times in the Atharva Veda, the word prana has been used to mean Purusha, and the word Rayi to mean Prakriti. The word Deva means the carrier of sensations, that is, organs and nerves. Through these, the body expresses a sensation or feeling, and that's why they are called Devas or gods of the microcosmic body. But these organs and nervous system are completely dependent on the spine for their existence and functions. Sensation is transmitted along the spine, and that is why without a spine, unit would be a motionless, inert, fleshy mass. A sloka declares that what spine is to the unit, Brahman is to the universe. Without Brahman, the universe would be utterly destroyed. The seed of the imagination would be completely obliterated. According to an ancient custom, death rites in honor of the deceased used to be performed by using Swadha mantra, an invocation chanted while to the spirits of the dead. That is why it is said that Brahman, as the first and the foremost point in order of succession, is as important to all mundane objects as the first recipient of obsequial oblations is to the subsequent ones. Without truthfulness, intellectual expansion towards the supreme is not possible. The etymological meaning of the word Veda is knowledge, two types. One type is subject to time, space, and person, and other is realization of self independent of all subjections. The former is called aparajnana, relative knowledge, because it is related object. The latter is Brahma Vijnana, intuitional science. What is the relation between Brahman and the world? The sage replied, just as the spokes are attracted to the hub of a wheel, similarly every object in this universe is Brahman-centric. The nucleus of cosmic system is source of all entities, the highest created being down to the lowest insect. Brahman is called Prajapati. He knows how to handle the situation because the ancient our culture shows how to find out the differences between Brahman and the other world. The universe is considered as Brahman centric, that alone can be differentiated in later words. The ancient civilizations can provide some luminous clues understanding the spiritual and psychological origins of human society and culture. In this quest, Vedic society culture of ancient India can be a fertile by source of insight, because it was built, guided, and shaped by spiritual seers and thinkers who had a deep insight into the spiritual and psychological dimensions of life. A deep understanding of the society, culture, and religion of early Vedic society can throw a revealing light on the inner origins of human civilization. But scientific and rational mind alone and its objective outlook cannot do this effectively. We have to take into consideration the spiritual insight of modern seers and sages who had a more or less similar experiences, realization or intuitions as ancient seers who shaped the Vedic age. This is an attempt to understand the early Vedic society and culture in a psychological and spiritual perspective, based mainly on the insights of Sri Aurobindo, a modern Indian seer, but also on other scholars and philosophers with deeper insight. In order to understand a social system, we must know the central idea and vision behind it. The early Vedic society has a natural as well as visionary case. Let us first examine the visionary cause. If we ask an average Indian or Western mind, or and even a scholar under the influence of the traditional Western interpretations of Indian culture, what is the basic of ancient Indian social order? He will say instantly, the caste system based on birth and hereditary. Since the day modern India came under the influence of rational and secular enlightenment of the West, it has become fashionable to denounce the caste system. To deride the caste system is considered as a sign of being progressive, but what is not recognized or understood is that caste system based on birth and hereditary is a final result and degenerate remnant of a great and unique attempt towards creating a society based on psychological and spiritual principles. There is undoubtedly a failure and degeneration, but these negative results have to be behaved in a holistic perspective in the background of the greater vision and the nobler attempt. There are three factors which we have to understand for a holistic comprehension of the Vedic society. First is the spiritual vision of the Vedic seers, articulated in a symbolic language of the Rig Veda. Second is psychological theory of four Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, based on the principle that the outer occupation of individuals has to be in harmony with their inner psychological quality, temperament and capacities. Third is a social system, Jati, based on the birth and hereditary. The ancient Indian thinkers made a clear distinction between Varna and Jati, the psychological basis and its social expression. There are innumerable passages in Indian scriptures which indicate that an individual's varna does not depend on birth but on their inner moral and psychological qualities, gunas. For example, the divine teacher in the well known Indian scripture Bhagavadgita states, I have created the four varnas according to their guna and karma. Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. Similarly, in a dialogue in the famous Indian epic Mahabharata between a serpent called Nahusha and Yudhishthira, Nahusha asks, O king, who is Brahmana? Yudhishthira replies, O king of serpents, if the qualities of truthfulness, charity, forgiveness, good conduct, benevolence, austerity, and mercy are found in a man, he is a Brahmin. And Yudhishthira replies, O serpent, if the qualities are present in a Shudra, he is no longer a Shudra, he is a Brahmin. If these qualities are absent in a Brahmin, he is not a Brahmin. With this brief introduction, let us now try to understand the vision and the idea behind the Vedic society and culture. The Vedic vision of human society is conveyed in the Purusha Sukta of Rigveda, which described the Purusha, the divine being marching ahead, with the Brahmana as the mouth. Brahmano asya mukhamasi bahurajanyakృతః puro tadadvaishyah padbhyam shudro ajayata. That's meaning. Brahmana as mouth, Kshatriya as his arm, Vaishya as his thighs, and Shudra as his feet. In brief, the central intuition behind this Vedic conception is that human society or social organization must be a faithful outer expression of the inner psychological faculties in man and their self-expression in the society. Brahmana represents the faculties of thinking, ethical and spiritual intelligence, seeking for truth, knowledge, values. Kshatriyas, the faculties of will seeking for power, strength and mastery. Vaishya, the faculties of emotions, vitality and pragmatic mind, seeking for mutuality, harmony, productivity, enjoyment, and practical adaptation to life. And Shudra, the faculties of physical being with its natural urge for work and service. Based on this intuition, human beings are classified into four psychological types according to their corresponding self-expression in the collective life of man. The Brahmana expressing himself through the social organ of culture, Kshatriya through polity, Vaishya through the economy, and Shudra through labor. But these psychological powers in man and the human types, they represent are themselves expressions of the corresponding fourfold cosmic powers. The power of wisdom, which determine the broad lines, principles, and order of the world. Power of strength, which enforces what the wisdom conceives. Power of harmony, which determines the rhythms, relations, and organization of things. The power of work, which executes what the other three conceives, decides, or dictates. The Vedic ideal of society is to make the entire of human society a direct and conscious expression of the fourfold powers of the creative Godhead in man through their corresponding human instruments. As Sri Aurobindo explains briefly the Vedic vision, human society was for them an attempt to express in life the cosmic Purusha who has expressed himself otherwise in the material and supra-physical universe. Man and the cosmos are both of them symbols and expressions of the same hidden reality. Thus, we have first the symbolic idea of the four orders expressing, to employ an abstractly figurative language which the Vedic thinkers would not have used nor perhaps understood, but which helps best our modern understanding. The divine as knowledge in man, the divine as power, the divine as production, enjoyment, and mutuality, the divine as service, obedience, and work. These divisions answer to four cosmic principles: the wisdom that conceives the order and principle of things, the power that sanctions, upholds, and enforces it, the harmony that creates the arrangement of its parts, the work that carries out what the rest direct. Next, out of this idea, there developed a firm but not yet rigid social order, based primarily upon temperament and psychic type with a corresponding ethical discipline, and secondarily upon the social and economic function. But the function was determined by its suitability to the type and its helpfulness to the discipline. It was not the primary or sole factor. In this Vedic conception, the main purpose of human society is to provide an outer framework for the inner psychological and spiritual development of the individual towards the spiritual aim of life. To achieve this purpose, the outer social occupation of the individual has to be in harmony with his or her inner psychological nature, temperament, and capacity. In Indian psychology, the consciousness of the spirit is the highest level of the inner hierarchy in man. Next comes the rational, ethical, and aesthetic faculties of the Brahmana, and the will and vital force of Kshatriya, more or less in the same level. Then comes the faculties of the Vaishya, and in the lowest level, that of Shudra. If the outer level comes in a social organization has to reflect this inner hierarchy, then those who are united with the consciousness of spirit. The seer and the sage have to provide the overarching vision, values, and ideas to the society. The Brahmana and the Kshatriya types representing the highest intelligence and will of the community under the higher guidance of the seer and the sage will provide the top leadership to society. The Brahmana, with his mental and ethical power, shapes the cultural life of the community. The Kshatriya, with his vital energy, and will, sitting in past positions of power and polity, will enforce the vision and thoughts of the sage and the Brahmana in the outer life. In the lower levels of the hierarchy, the Vaishya will organize and manage the economy, and the Shudra will give the material form to whatever that is conceived or created by the Brahmana, Kshatriya, or the Vaishya. Thus, we can see in the ancient Indian social thought, we have a social theory and practice based on the spiritual and psychological dimensions of human life. There is no scientific and empirical evidence for this vision of Vedic seers, but there is an intuitive logic behind it. When we examine the history of human civilizations, we can see that in all these civilizations, the society tends to organize around four classes conceived by Vedic sages. In all societies, there is a priestly or thinking class, a warrior, ruling or administrative class, merchant and professional class, and a working class. There are some universal human instincts, individual and collective, which are the expressions of the psychophysical constitution of the human being. They are perhaps the expression of some universal archetypes in the collective unconscious of Carl Jung or cosmic superconscious of the Vedic seer. But neither the collective unconscious of Jung or the cosmic superconscious of Vedic seers have any scientific or empirical evidence, and which do we prefer depend on our subjective judgment on who has a deeper and greater knowledge of psychology. The personal preference of the author is for the Vedic seers because this author believes that the Vedic sages had a deeper and more extensive knowledge of human consciousness than any modern psychologist. Interestingly, Carl Jung himself admitted that Eastern psychology is far more advanced than modern psychology. In his autobiography, Carl Jung said, psychoanalysis itself and the lines of thought to which it gives rise are only a beginner's attempt compared to what is an immortal art of the East, symbolic age. This brings us to another unique feature of the Vedic civilization. The Vedas are the creation of one of the earliest epochs of human civilization, when humanity as a whole had not acquired the reflective and rational intellectuality. It was the infra-rational age in which the human mass in general lived in the mostly subconscious and communal vital sensations mentality with its swarm modes. Life instincts. In initiation, it was the age which human consciousness, unclouded by the complexity of reflective intellectuality, had an instinctive insight which perceived the outer world as a symbol of some supraphysical powers. From this state of spontaneous vital instincts, a few exceptional individuals by following psychological powers. This explains the symbolic and neutralistic forms of Vedic poetry. The Vedic sages described their inner psychological and spiritual experiences and realizations in a symbolic language using the events and objects of the external world when attracts and occupies predominantly physical man who lives mainly in his spontaneous, instinctive and sensational physical vital being. The sense of infinity and vastness of the higher spiritual consciousness is imagined in a figure of the ocean. The Vedas around abound in such images. Shri Kantai Kalyana Nidhe Nidhedanam Shri Venkatramasa Srinivasaya Mangala Mangalasasana Parimadacharya Purogamai Sarva Esha Purva Racharya Satrutaya Sumangalam.